Good evening, everyone. Welcome to 1001 Nights of Lessons. I'm your host, Dildar. I'm a Uyghur girl living in the US in her late 20s, working a normal corporate job 9 to 5, but I'm here to share all the stories and lessons learned 5 to 9 with you all. For the new listeners and viewers of the podcast, 1001 Nights of Lessons is a storytelling and self-development podcast, much like the OG Arabian Nights. We're here to unpack the stories of our lives that shaped us into who we are and to reflect lessons learned along the way. Hello everyone, welcome to night 22, and today we are reviewing the book, The Courage to be Disliked, the Japanese phenomenon that shows you how to change your life and achieve real happiness by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitaki Koga. The Courage to be Disliked is essentially 5 nights of conversations between a young man and a philosopher. This is not your typical fluffy self-help book. It is heavily based on Adlerian psychology. It's rather academic, I would say, but in such a digestible way. The Courage to be Disliked is the equivalent of 5 deeply effective mind-transforming therapy sessions on interpersonal challenges that we all face in our day-to-day life. The book hooks you in with seemingly controversial, unpopular takes like trauma is not real. Unhappiness is your choice. We should not give praises to people. Freedom isn't being disliked. After digesting all of the philosophical analysis, all of these controversial takes start to make sense to me. So I am one student of the book. When I test out these mindsets and philosophies in my life is when I know that they actually work. I am a believer of these mindsets now because I've seen true change throughout this 1 month of reading the book. I know all of these takes that I just mentioned are crazy to you right now, but before you judge, before you dismiss these controversial takes, I want you to take a listen fully to today's episode in our discussion today to see if it would convince you to open up the book and go on this philosophical journey of Adlerian psychology yourself. Let's talk about my reading experience of this book because I had a month to digest the book, and it is definitely something you want to pause and digest. For that reason, I've listened to most part of the books twice on Spotify, and at the same time, I read the book, made notes, and use it for quotes physically. If you love philosophy, if you love psychology, this is your jam. You're going to love this. Overall, I'm just really grateful that I've read this book because of the transformation to my mind this book has done. And we're going to talk about all of this transformation today. I don't want to keep throwing you in a loop talking about the book without talking about it. But on that note, I'd just like to say it's been 4 books now since December, January, February, March. We've read through 1001 Nights of Books book club. These 4 books together already have such a huge impact on my personal life. I feel like I'm a wiser person because of these 4 books I've read. My mind is richer. This book club I've started with you guys is the best thing I could have ever done. I am delivering value by sharing these amazing books and the lessons I've learned from it. I'm also changing my own life. Let this be one of the first things you can take away from today's episode is to start reading if you haven't already. It's kind of like workout. You will never regret it. The best part is we still have the rest of the year to read 9 more books. I cannot wait. That's like one of the joy in life to think about the books I'm about to read. It's that feeling that, oh my God, there's so much to learn in this world. There's so much knowledge just waiting to be discovered. Never enough time. Giddy just thinking about it. So if you haven't joined the past book clubs, reading with me together, I want to invite you here officially to join me from April on. Later on in today's episode, I will be announcing April's book club book read. It is a special one. We're switching genre. And with that being said, it's your favorite time, giveaway time. It is time to announce March book club giveaway. So for March, as always, I'm going to give away the book we've read together in case you haven't read it, so you can read it for yourself. I will be giving away The Courage to be Disliked, our book review today. Second giveaway gift for our March book club is a very special piece that I scouted myself. Take a look at it, camera. For the listeners of the podcast, I am holding up a piece of vintage Fendi that I thrifted from vintage shops in Seattle. It is in classic black and gray canvas with some dark navy leathering. It is a little beat up because it's a vintage piece, but if you're into fashion, I trust that you can upcycle this. Lastly, I always throw in some samples of skincare product that I've been collecting in every month's giveaway. So if you'd like to enter the giveaway, listen up. This is how. Number one, follow the podcast wherever you listen, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and then leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For the YouTube listeners, you can simply just leave a comment under today's video. After that, come on over to 1001 Nights of Lessons Instagram at 1001 Nights of Lessons. Give it a follow and let me know in the DM you've entered the giveaway. That's all the announcements today. Let's dive into the book, The Courage to be Disliked. As I mentioned earlier, The Courage to be Disliked is based on Adlerian psychology by Alfred Adler. Don't be embarrassed. I didn't know who that person was either. I only knew Sigmund Freud. Turns out Alfred Adler and Sigmund Freud, they're friends. They lived in the same decade in Austria at the same time, in the same era. In fact, matter of fact, they've had coffee together, discussed their ideologies with each other. Now let's get into some of the ideas from the book that stood out to me the most, that I found helpful myself. Number one, trauma is not real. Say what? Up until reading the book, I've quoted casually in a joking way in social settings over 1 million times with my friends. Haha, trauma bonded. I think the word trauma is a little bit overused and is the focus, is the hot buzzword. And I've had a few myself, and I've talked about some of them on this podcast in the past episodes. This book made me realize that I may have given my trauma a little too much credit. Adler believes trauma is not real because our past does not matter. Our present and future is not determined by the past. Adlerian psychology does not deny the fact that factual bad things can happen to people. Even if something bad happened in the past, you still have the power in present to determine what your future goals to be and go towards that. I think it's a very empowering mindset to have because bad things happen to a lot of good people, but those things do not define us. Just like a lot of victims do not like to be called victim and to be seen as survivors only, because for anyone, no matter of what happened to us in the past, that shouldn't define us. We have our present moment. We need to live in the present moment now. Have the courage to have a goal to change your future to any version you like. That's essentially Adlerian psychology's approach to this matter. This belief that everything has an inherent purpose and goal and an end is very teleology. This is another psychological term. Again, I've learned it from the book. Now, traditionally, most people are subscribed to etiology approach. Adlerian psychology actually advises you not to be trapped in etiology because you can easily trapped into this excuse finding mindset, because what etiology is cause and effect. The result of the situation that I'm in is because what I did in the past. Because of so-and-so, that's why my current situation is like this. That is etiology. When you find excuses for your present situation because of what happened in the past, you are lying to yourself about what your true goal is. That kind of excuse finding based on the past is etiology. However, teleology will tell you to look backwards. The result in front of you, your actions, what you've been doing, showcases another agenda that you had. The true goal that you had. Because you had a goal of not wanting to succeed, that's why you arrived at where you are. It makes you take radical responsibility of what your true goal is. Does that make any sense? This one threw me in for a loop. I had to read it a couple times to understand the difference between etiology and teleology. I can give you 2 personal examples. Immediately after reading this part, I had a conversation with my brother. He recently had an English as a second language test, TOEFL, IELTS test. He didn't get a good score. And when he was talking about his score, he said, oh yeah, my writing score is really low. That dragged the entire score down. The reason my writing was really bad was because my typing was slow. Because I was bad at typing, That's why I got a bad writing. In the past, before I read this book, I may have like compassionately understood him for a second. You're not really good at typing, I guess. That's unfortunate that it's a computer exam for you that requires you to type to get a good writing score. But after reading this book, I'm not going to be fooled by this. Okay? Not one bit of compassion regarding this blatant excuse my brother gave me. I paused and I asked, Arafat, be honest. Do you really want to get a good score? He was like, what do you mean? Of course I want to get a good score. That is my goal. I asked him more question, okay? How many times did you practice writing essay on computer? The entire preparation, the couple months he had to prepare for this last IELTS exam, he wrote 3 essays. Now tell me, for a person who really wants to improve their writing score, would they only write 3 months, 3 essays? Your actions of not writing essay enough reveals another different goal to me. It reveals that in actuality, you do not want to improve your score. Instead of finding excuse, what you needed to do now is to admit you didn't want to get better at writing. And if you want a different goal, act towards that goal. Act as if you really want to improve your writing score. That is teleology. I feel like my brother also had an enlightening moment. Many times in my life, in my adulthood, I wanted to start a business and I had many, many business ideas. None of them I succeeded at. And I just kind of gave up for whatever reason. And I always found excuses along the way. And I figured out what actually was happening is that I believe that I don't deserve success. For some reason, I was scared of success. I would stop exactly right before what it takes to be successful. Realizing that was hard. Now with this, I am even more empowered to do whatever it takes to achieve my goal. And that is why you see me showing up here 22 episodes in a row every single week without a fail. And on that note, let's take a commercial break. I'd like to share the sponsor of today's episode. It is me. Please follow the podcast 1001 Nights of Lessons wherever you listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, you can leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. That would help me reach my goal of growing the podcast in 2025. Lastly, check out my vlog channel at Dildar Abdu, where I experiment on trying new things to improve my life 2 weeks at a time. I'll link everything in the show note. Thank you so much for listening. I love you guys. Let's go back into the episode. Next idea that I really love is the fact that people can change. Adler believes people can change. However, it is hard to change, and most people are afraid of changing. It dates back to our survival instinct again, because changing who you are will result in different reactions in your environment, and it is an unknown territory. You wouldn't know how people will treat you, this new version of you. You wouldn't know how your interpersonal relationships will evolve, right? And it is completely unknown. And unknown equals danger, equals uncomfort, equals scary. That is why a lot of people don't easily change for the rest of their lives. However, if you're up for it, if you have the courage to change, you can change. And extend on that topic, Adler believes that anyone can be happy, no matter what has happened to them. Unhappiness is a choice, just as happiness is a choice. Somewhat controversial, I would say. To quote the book a little bit, it says, your unhappiness cannot be blamed on your past or your environment. It isn't that you lack competence, you just lack courage. One might say you're lacking in the courage to be happy. I know what you're thinking. It's easy to say choose to be happy, but how? How do we actually be happy? I had that question as well, and the young man also raised that question to the philosopher in the book. I feel like this idea of subjectivity and objectivity that the author mentions later on will be really helpful for us to choose to be happy, to stay in positive mindset. So let me elaborate on that. Facts are facts. Those are objective things we cannot change. All other subjective matters, you have the power to positively perceive it. no matter what it is. And that is a way of you choosing to be happy. I'll give you an example from the book. The philosopher himself is very short. All his life, he was unhappy about the fact that he is short. It is something that he cannot change, right? Height. Until one day he talked to a very, very tall person. And the tall person told the philosopher, hey, it is really good that you are short because you are more personable to people. People can feel close to you and find you endearing. But because I am so tall, a lot of people are scared of me or perceive me as a physical threat of some sort, and that is a disadvantage of being tall. Immediately after hearing that, the philosopher changed his mind about his height. Now he perceives his height as a powerful thing. This is how I feel about my nose. There's so many examples. For some reason, that's what I thought of right now sitting here. But according to modern beauty standard, my nose is a eagle hooked nose pointing downwards. And a lot of people, they would get plastic surgery for it. However, I never, ever felt my nose was ugly, not even once, because I see it as such a powerful, unique thing that represents my heritage, my ancestors, of who I am, my difference. It even have like this certain witch-like characteristic that adds layer to my personality, which I enjoy very, very much. So perspective, knowing that you have the power to subjectively twist anything into a positive way is such a superpower. It helps you kill your negative thought. And maybe next time when you have a negative thought, that is when you can remember to assess what is reality, what is fact, how can I subjectively make my reality better. Now, let's move on to the most important idea of the book, the separation of task. This is a big idea that has so many important ideas that are mind-blowing. Separation of task is essentially respecting the boundary between your own task and another individual's task. Here, task is in a much broader sense. It's not just like things to do. This directly correlates to seeking recognition. Adler believes that we should stop seeking recognition from other people and stop fulfilling others' expectations. This is an act of focusing our own task rather than trying to live other people's task. When we are trying to fulfill others' expectations in life, whether it's friends, loved ones, family, or unknown strangers that we try to impress for no reason, we are not living our own life. We are ignoring our life living for other people because those are their expectations. Those are their beliefs. Isn't that sad? And there's a quote in the book somewhere. If you're not living your life, who's going to live it for you? Oh my God. So stop living for other people. Focus on your own task. Live for yourself. I had a progression of this on my own term. I've been trapped under the spell of seeking recognition from my parents. And then it progressed into my teachers in school, high school, middle school, college even, and this social circle approval of some sort. It is in college when I first forgo my parents' task. They want me, their expectation is for me to study a certain major, to pursue a certain career path, like any other Asian parents, doctor, engineer, what's the other one? Lawyer. Absolutely not, right? That's just not my calling. That's not what I want to do. They actually do not understand that they're invading into my task territory, trying to control my task versus focus on their own life's task. And Adler later talks about this too. He says parents who try to control their children, control their lives, whether it's marriage, career, they're not living their own life. And it comes from a place of inferiority, that they are unhappy about their own life, that they want to change and control their children's life. And I had this conversation with my parents today. They actually agree. They've actually also realized that they should stop doing that. This past couple of years, they've been really good. They have fully trust in the adult that I am, which I'm so grateful for. And they're trying to do the same for my brother. Adler says that we should practice constantly asking whose task this is in life circumstances. We talked about do not intrude other people's tasks, but also be aware of not pursuing other people's tasks. And seeking for recognition and expectation is pursuing other people's tasks versus yours. And we talked about that as well. And one more example I can think of is the term people pleasing. It is literally pursuing other people's tasks. It's all in the same realm of psychology and philosophy here. It's the same thing in different words, different shapes, different level and degree. Sometimes we constantly live under this imaginary pressure of, oh, what would other people think? What if some people judge me if I do this and that? And then restrict our true self. Well, I had experienced this myself, but I'm sure you probably have too. Like when you first start dating someone that you don't normally date, you start worrying about what would your friends think about your boyfriend or girlfriend. And when they ask like, can I see a picture? Or who are you dating? When you want to first introduce to them, you're kind of afraid of their judgment. That is living for other people's tasks, introducing that burden and pressure into your own life. I experienced this in my past relationships as well. I truly just let go. It reached to a point that I realized what matters is just me and my relationship. Nobody else, because nobody else knows how happy we are, and it doesn't matter of anything they might or might not think, because it is not true. In my eyes, my partner will always be a piece of diamond, whether if stranger A's think it's a potato or stranger B think it's a tomato. I don't care, it's a piece of diamond in my eyes. So it is really important to like embrace your own desire versus anticipating other people's judgment. I thought of another example in dating that's really relevant. In dating, we oftentimes push our expectations on our partner and trying to change who they are. There's nothing wrong with hoping and believing and wishing your partners to improve or change into a certain way, but you need to understand that you cannot change people. It is up to them to decide whether they want to change or not. You can express and communicate, yes, but it is up to them. It is not your task to mold their actions. That's overstepping into other people's tasks. Let me read you a quote from the book on this. The act of believing is also the separation of task. You believe in your partner. That is your task. But how that person acts with regard to your expectations and trust is other people's task. When you push your wishes without having drawn that line, before you know it, you're engaging in stalker-like intervention. Suppose your partners did not act as you had wished. Would you still be able to believe in that person? Would you still be able to love that person? The task of love that Adler speaks of is composed of such questions. Once you overstep that line, then if this person does not change, this could very much affect your love immediately. You would think he or she does not love me, and you would take it so personally because you're already overstepping into their realm of the world. Love and control thus all meshed together. Messy, messy, messy. All you need to do is respect that line and understand what is your task. And going back to that question, whose task is this? Next thing I learned from the idea of separating task, freedom is in being disliked. And it is the fundamental idea of the book, the courage to be disliked, right? In fact, if you're disliked, it is proof that you're living your own truth versus living for other people. So it is good to have some hate or dislike, and that's okay. If you appeal to all, then you're not appealing to yourself. If you conform to all, you're conforming to none of what matters to you. Other people's negative opinions of you are other people's task. Worrying about other people's negative opinions of you, letting that stress you out or affect you in any way, that is overstepping into other people's tasks. Moving on to the next philosophical idea that I thought is super interesting. All relationships are horizontal relationships. On individual level, to exercise horizontal relationship is even harder than you think, because in my early career as a young working woman, I've conducted my relationships in such a vertical way. I look up to my boss, revered my boss, believe that they are superior to me in a sense, which is so not true. It is just a job. That person who's my boss is going home doing the same thing that I do every day. Like, it's just a regular person, right? We put them up on a pedestal for some reason. reminding myself that all relationships are horizontal, even the ones with your bosses, are really helping me to conduct myself with confidence and with less of a imposter syndrome at work. Let's go into some of the more intricate layers of this horizontal relationship. The other tricky one, we talked a lot about this today, is familial relationship. Even those relationships between parents and their children should be horizontal. Your children are human beings unto themselves. I see that a lot of healthy, happy family, they often exercise this really well. Their parents are really open, accepting, and respecting of their children's life, no matter what they do. As long as they're happy, healthy, that's what matters to them. Those families oftentimes have horizontal relationships. And mine in the past, oh my God, it was definitely a straight up Mount Cumulama vertical relationship with my parents, okay? Just this past couple of years, I've been molding my relationship with my parents to be a horizontal one as much as possible, and we're getting there. So I hope this gives you hope that even you currently have a vertical relationship in any areas of your life, you can change that, because people can change, because every little ideology are all intertwined together as long as you have a goal. Oh my God. A very shocking idea that I read. I had a hard time accepting myself. The book says praises creates a vertical relationship, and we should not praise people in order to achieve horizontal relationship. Giving praises to people, giving compliments to people is not good. I love to compliment on my girls when I see them. Oh my God, I love your dress. Oh my God, you look so pretty. In fact, the girl in the elevator just gave me a compliment on my top and the skirt that I sewed myself. You know, how can we not do that? It's such a beautiful thing. Praising someone comes from a judgmental point. You are judging someone and putting yourself in a superior position to say that I know what's good and bad for you, and this is good. I have to kind of agree on that, low key. Another high key, not good thing is that some people praise people with an agenda, a favor or advancement of some sort. Like at workplace, you're sucking up to your boss and you're gaining their approval and trust by praising them excessively. I think that is not necessary. You put yourself in that situation in an inferior position instead of like horizontal. Just like a moment of pure impulse praising. I kind of like it. Now, what should we do if we cannot praise people? Adler suggests that instead of praising someone, next time just express your gratitude. Thank you for blah, blah, blah things that they have done for you. Thank you for being such a great friend. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for being there for me. So many things. Just thank you. Using gratitude to even out the relationship to a more horizontal one. I use it in the opposite sense when I want to apologize. Instead of apologizing unnecessarily, I say thank you, and it works in a beautiful way. What happens when a relationship is not horizontal? Then we will create so many imbalances. Adler says inferiority and superiority are all symptoms of imbalanced horizontal relationships. So let's look at what is inferiority and what is superiority. I actually learned something about superiority I didn't know before. Inferiority is when you feel like you have no worth. To preface this, in interpersonal relationship, Adler talks about our sense of worth comes from providing value to our community, whether it's a community of two people or the community of the universe. You can only feel inferior when you compare yourself to something. And that's kind of stepping over to other people's task when you're doing that. See, it's all interconnected. That's why we should not compare ourselves to others and truly believe and be open-minded that all relationships are horizontal and you are as important, as valuable as everyone else on this earth. This is what shocked me. Superiority is actually a response to inferiority that someone has. Every person who has superiority complex, they quintessentially feel inferior to other. They suffer from inferiority first. And then they cannot handle the fact that they are inferior for other. And they react to that sense of inferiority by posing this facade of superiority, by acting like as if they are superior to everyone and everything is fake. But to them, they believe it. They believe that they are better than other people. They believe that they're superior to other people in some sense. because that's the only way they can live with themselves. Isn't that sad? That is why that saying is so true when they say the more people boast about something, the more they lack in that thing. Next time, if someone acts like superior in power or money or anything in front of you, just know that you're actually sorry for them, because they believe that they don't have any of that. No matter what the reality, they could be a millionaire, they could be a normal person, or they could be the president of the world, and they feel superior with power over you. But in reality, they feel like they have no power. That's why they crave more power and more power when they don't even need to do all that, because we're all equal. But also, it is not my task to worry about. Oh my God, I am plagued with these psychology. And that's all the tidbits on horizontal relationships. And with that, I hope you enjoyed all the takeaways I had from the book and our discussion today. And I strongly recommend yourself to check out the book, The Courage to Be Disliked. And I know that you're going to enjoy this philosophical journey as much as I did, if not even more. For April, as I promised, we're pivoting out of the self-help world. We're going into history. Are you ready? We are reading Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World by Jack Weatherford. So basically, we're reading the story of Genghis Khan. I call him Genghis Khan based on like my language, but the spelling in English is Genghis Khan. By the time we review this book, I will promise that I will get the pronunciation down. But for now, you know him. Everybody knows him. One of the most famous people in history, Genghis Khan. The startling true history of how one extraordinary man from a remote corner of the world created an empire that led the world into the modern age. Oh, chills. I got chills. A lot of like conquering type of leader is controversial, right? Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak too much on it yet because I don't know anything about him. So I'm excited to read this book, to know about what this book has to teach me about Genghis Khan. Read this book with me. I have a feeling it's going to be a good one. And that's all for today. I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.